In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness mornings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Ange Davis. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it. Hello friends, welcome to the show. Today's guest is Megan Gourlay, the founder of Love With Me, a boutique matchmaking service built on one simple belief, that meaningful relationships have the power to change lives. And I am such a huge believer in this. After studying relationship counseling and developing a passion for human connection, Megan created a highly personalized matchmaking approach that goes far beyond dating apps and algorithms, which I'm sure if anyone's on them, I've never been on a dating app in my life because I met my husband when I was very young. But I'm sure those who are on them can agree it is a bit of a minefield. Megan takes the time to deeply understand each of her clients' values, lifestyle and relationship goals, helping people find genuine compatibility rather than just chemistry. Through her work, she's witnessed firsthand how relationships shape our confidence, mental health, resilience and overall well-being. Her mission is to create authentic, lasting connections that allow people to live happier and healthy lives. And I have to say, my husband is definitely one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And I think that it really is one of the biggest decisions you can make is who you choose to spend your life with. So I'm looking forward to chatting all things relationships today. Megan, welcome.
Thanks, Ange. Thanks for having me.
I'm really, really excited to talk about this because I think when we speak about, obviously your work is romantic relationships, but I think a lot of what we'll speak about today can be applied to all relationships. And, you know, relationships are really the basis of our health and well-being. But I'd love to start with your story. What drew you into matchmaking and what did you see that was missing in the current way people were trying to find love?
Yeah, I was an accountant for 25 years and had worked in the corporate world for a long time. And I started having lots of conversations with people who I started to really notice that they were craving connection. And we have so much connection in our lives through our phones and our apps. And that gives us one form of connection. But when it comes to personal relationships in the form of true love, you can only really get that in real life. And I was single in my 30s for about 7 years, and I did everything to find the connection that I was looking for. I went speed dating, I went to business networking events, I joined sporting teams, I even went on Farmer Wants a Wife.
Wow.
I did so many things because finding a connection in the form of a relationship was really important to me. And I did meet my husband when I was in my late 30s, and we've been together 9 years now. And I just couldn't stop thinking about all the people that were still dealing with trying to find their connection. And this is at all ages. There's people, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s, even up to 70s who crave connection. And I really wanted to do something to bridge the gap because that's what matchmaking is about. It's simply connecting people. And there's so many people out there who genuinely want connection, but the tools and the services don't work for a lot of people, and they're really just falling through the cracks.
I can imagine. I can't even imagine having to be on some of those tools. And it certainly, I would imagine, make people feel just like a number. I mean, even on social media in general, people can feel like that, let alone when they're putting themselves out there. I
Yeah.
think, we obviously talk a lot about wellbeing at work on this podcast, and relationships are the basis of our health and happiness. As I said, the evidence points to that. It's also one of the strongest predictors of happiness and longevity. Have you seen people's lives transform through the relationships that you've been able to help them form?
Yeah, and definitely and you can see it all the time in people who may have been single for a long time, craving that connection, and they carry with them, oh, maybe this is not going to happen for me. What's wrong with me? Why am I not finding the connection that I'm seeing other people have? And so there's definitely, that evidence definitely plays out with what I see. And when somebody does finally find that connection, and particularly after a long period of time, it doesn't just change their love life. It just changes everything about them, because that piece that feels missing lifts, and it really, and absolutely then translates into every aspect, including the workplace, where we spend a big chunk of our time. We probably spend more than half our week in the workplace. And you can see that, when that lifts, people become better leaders. They interact with their colleagues differently. And that whole, being a better leader, business owner, better colleague is just, a huge benefit to people seeking that settled connection in their personal life.
Yeah. And I guess, the right people, regardless of the type of relationship they have with us, naturally bring out the best in us. And if they can give us confidence and the ability to self-reflect, then I think it's only going to be a good thing. What do you think people are actually searching for underneath the I want a partner? I think if we think a lot, I talk a lot about having our own rich life on this show, and that means, what does your ideal life look like as an individual? Not what society tells you, but what is it for you? And so I sometimes think there's this headline like, we've got to have a partner or get married or whatever it is, because that's just what people do. But underneath it all, what do you think people are truly searching for?
I think it's connection and the belonging. Like, we live in villages, we live in communities, we work in teams, we have families. And so for people who spend significant periods of time not having a deep personal connection, it ties into, well, if everyone in these villages and the communities and they're all connected, they're not getting that. And connection can come in many different forms, but that true personal connection of being in a relationship, I think is, it's ultimately tied to the purpose of life, isn't it? Because that belonging and that feeling of being connected to someone else, which is then part of that broader community, or that broader, that it translates into the workplace and all the aspect of the things that we are part of where we live and where we work. So it's feeling like we belong like everybody else, if that's what you want.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And, feeling like you belong without having to change yourself to try and fit in as well, I think is really important. Yeah. I think sometimes, it depends on your algorithm, right? But sometimes things pop up around like, here's my top 5 red flags and all of these things, which I think I'm like, oh boy, these things seem so trivial. But I want to flip it a little bit, because I'm the eternal optimist. What did you think are the green flags that you see that tell you that two people have the foundations for a genuinely healthy relationship? And I think this is also relevant to friendships too. So what are the things that you see that will really make a relationship thrive?
Yeah. My number one thing is, how does that person make you feel? When you spend time with that person and you walk away, how do you feel? And that's what I say to all my clients. It's like, how did you feel spending time with them? And then that flows on to, do you want to see them again? Do you look forward to seeing them again? That is my number one, because you can have somebody, it's you're right, friendships or relationships, you can have somebody who ticks all the boxes on paper, but if you're not feeling that I want to spend time with them or I'm enjoying it, it's not the right path, because the right path always starts with feeling good and actually wanting to spend more time with someone. So I'd say notice that's first, and that was always my gauge. Even if I thought, wow, that the boxes are all ticked here. If it didn't feel right, it's just not going to be right. And then the other things are, how does the person treat other people around them? How do they interact with people? Do they ask you questions? Do they listen? And if there is, hiccups or slight disagreements, do they repair well? Do they say, I didn't handle that great? Do their actions match their words? They're the things that I think are good indicators, good green flags to really look for, because I think your instincts always know before any checklist or anything else on paper. It's really just go with your instincts and how you feel. I think that guides you the best way in life.
I think those are some really great tips. I think seeing how people treat others is a really big one, because I think it's very easy to put on a front for people for a period of time for the person that, they're wanting to impress. But, how you treat people who are maybe serving your food or, on a plane or things like that. It's funny. My husband and I have been together nearly 17 years now and married for 13. And he said to me the other day, he's like, one of the first times I really knew the sort of person you were. We were walking in Pitt Street Mall in Sydney, and there was a guy sleeping rough, and I always would just buy him a sandwich because he had a dog and things like that. And he's like, that's how I knew the type of person you were. Like, you didn't think anything about it. You just went and did it, and that's how I knew. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I never would have thought of it. And then you've put it in that context as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on, because that's just you being you and showing people who your values are. And that's always a better indicator than someone selling themselves in a profile or pitching themselves. It's look and see what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good tip. And I think it's true for business relationships. I think it's true in the workplace. I think it's true of friendships as well. You can really see a lot about a person when you look outside your one-to-one interactions.
Yeah.
From your experience, what do you think are the biggest barriers preventing people from finding meaningful connection today? I think, some of the things that come to mind are like technology. We're behind a screen. We're not out as much anymore. Unrealistic expectations, maybe fear of vulnerability or busy lives. What are you seeing?
Yeah, look, it's a few things. I mean, the first thing is definitely the apps. They're a subscription-based model. So they're designed to keep you active on a subscription. And it treats people like a catalog. Next, someone Betty is swiping on, I don't like that photo. Next, swipe, swipe, swipe. So the paradox of choice always says, there's someone better. People are replaceable. And that really is then, you're missing opportunities to connect with people that you otherwise probably would be a really good connection for.
It's actually so true, isn't it? Because I think back, to even when I met Liam, and I think, like, unless you're out in a pub, again, you're not looking for, I don't know, I just feel like it's so accessible and it's not even human, it's just like that very quick swipe.
Yeah. And if you don't have good photos or your profile is not perfect, people are going to just overlook you, that they wouldn't probably otherwise do that in real life if they had a chat. So the apps are definitely one thing. And then I think it's, the vulnerability and the connection. I think it's, for people who genuinely want that human connection and maybe it's taken them a long time to find it, it can be that, wanting something so much and not sure you're being able to actually find it. It makes you put yourself on that pillar of vulnerability every time you're putting yourself out there trying to connect with somebody, because it's really asking you to say, well, I need to be seen and I'm going to have to put myself out there, and maybe that connection won't develop, or maybe that person won't connect with me. And so it's asking you to be vulnerable every time you're putting yourself out there as well.
Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? Because it's not just being vulnerable once. You have to do it again and again and again. And I'm sure that it wears down on people.
Absolutely it does. And that's why you feel like there's that whole dating app fatigue, and people are very disillusioned, because if you are on dating apps a long time, you have to have a lot of self-confidence to continue to put yourself out there and continue to persist in that environment if you're someone who, you're slightly falling through the cracks of what dating apps are about.
Absolutely. You obviously work with people every day. Yeah. How much of finding the right relationships, that includes friendships, business relationships, and romantic relationships, is actually about becoming the kind of person that's ready for one versus looking for what you want in it externally?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, because I do speak to a lot of people, and I do hear from some people, I've healed myself, I've done work on myself, and I think, there's a lot of, and I do sort of collaborate and work with a lot of, life coaches and counselors and, some beautiful holistic practitioners who do wonderful work with lots of people. And I think there's absolutely a place for a lot of people to see if they can find tools and strategies to help them live a better life. So I think that, that's wonderful that people do access those things. However, I feel that there's also a cohort of people through that sort of space that can be on the sidelines forever, waiting to say, I've healed, or I've worked on myself enough now that I'm ready. And I think people staying on the sidelines is also not necessarily the best thing to be. I'm waiting forever. Things happen to all of us in life. We all have to deal with grief, loss, disappointment, trauma, and waiting until none of that touches you. You might be waiting forever. And so for me, the biggest thing is self-awareness, knowing how the things that you carry in your life trigger interactions with your partner or in your workplace or with your friendships, and being able to have the strategies that can make you just at least carry that in a more content way. Because, people who find lasting love are not the ones that never clash. They're the ones that know how to show up honestly and go, yep, you know what? I can admit that I'm not perfect, and readiness is not, okay, I'm going to finish line. I'm going to be ready. I'm going to live a perfect life. It's about knowing how you can interact within a relationship in others while you're dealing with stuff as well. We're all just a work in progress, in my opinion.
I agree. None of us are perfect. And I think you make such a good point, because I talk a lot about self-awareness is important, but self-awareness without action is just a whole lot of thinking, and then you're not doing anything. And so, I imagine you could do things in parallel, right? You can continue. I mean, we should all be continuing to work on our self-awareness and understand ourselves, but in parallel, taking action at the same time. I think that's really important. And I think you raise a really important point there that is relevant to all relationships in our life. And that is that it's unlikely we'll ever have relationships where we don't have a disagreement or an argument, right? Whether that's friendships, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's romantic, but it is how we repair those relationships and, take accountability and try and, I guess, I always say, fight the issue, not the person, and I think oftentimes as humans, we can be more wired to try and be right than to try and fix the problem. And I think the more that we can focus on the problem at hand, the better that repair becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you.
There's a growing body of research about loneliness, and it's linked to poorer physical and mental health. I read a report that likened loneliness to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of its impact on our health. Have you seen loneliness impact people in ways that maybe they didn't even recognize until they were able to experience true connection?
Yeah, and I think it's the loneliness, and I think that's a big part of what I do, is because it's not talked about enough. Particularly if you're a single person, it can be invisible to others. So the thing I like to talk about is when you go to work on a Monday morning and people ask you, "Oh, how was your weekend?" If you get answers from somebody who says, "Oh, it's quiet, not much went on, nothing really," that can be someone right in front of you who dreads the weekends as a single person. Because on the weekends, it's typically a time for families or people to spend time with their partner. And if you've been single for a long time and you're genuinely wanting that connection, that Monday morning conversation is loneliness in its real form. It's somebody who maybe has normalized being a bit flat, normalized, I'm independent, I prefer my own company. And people can sort of carry that for years, and it can almost become like they're part of their personality. And so then when they, if they eventually do find that genuine connection, which they do, but it may take a long time, they can say and present then in a different way. And you can say, wow, I didn't even realize that they were not that settled all of those years. And when they find that connection, the weight of loneliness absolutely lifts. So I think there's absolutely a huge connection with people who want the connection, and then the impacts on their health and their overall well-being. And, I say that those Monday morning conversations are definitely insightful, because they're the people who might actually just need a little bit more of extra support around connecting within their broader workplace or their community, or maybe being asked out on the weekend to do something, because there's a lot of people out there who want connection, but I think as a society we kind of maybe forget about them a little bit and realize that they don't put their hand up and say, you know what, I'm feeling lonely, or I'm feeling like I want to meet somebody, but single people don't do that enough. And it's because it's kind of like, I feel vulnerable and I feel a bit uncomfortable to share that to others.
It's so true, isn't it? You know, I reflect back, and not that I was single, but my husband was in the military for 16 years. And so there'd be some years where he was away for 9 months of a year. And, you know, I had a really full career and I had a lot of friends, but certainly I feel like there were weekends where I was like, I don't want another Saturday night in or Friday night, and, you know, people hang out with their partners and their families and all of that sort of stuff. And sometimes it does get tiring being the one to be like, hey, does anyone want to do anything? You know, so I feel like I can empathize in a bit of a way with that, even though it's a different context. But I think it's a really good shout for people out there if you've got single friends or people whose husbands or partners even work away a lot, is to be the person to be like, hey, we're just having family dinner. Do you want to just come over for dinner? It doesn't have to be a big thing. So I think it's a really good point that you make.
And I think even, you're right, people in relationships as well can feel loneliness, and they also sometimes want that connection through friendships. And again, it all comes back to being connected as part of your community, be invited places. Like if it makes no difference to have a few extra, just put the call out. Hey, we're having dinner, or we're having a barbecue. A few extra people often doesn't matter, but that invitation can sometimes mean a lot to somebody who is craving connection.
It's so true. And I think at the same time, sometimes we've got to get out of our own way, even if we're comfortable in our pajamas at home, and be like, you know what, I'm getting dressed and I'm going to go as well, because I do sometimes think that comfort can be the enemy of community, you know, because it takes effort to get out and drive and go somewhere, but that effort is almost always rewarded from a community perspective.
Yeah. How many times, it's like going to the gym. How many times do you think, I really don't want to go to the gym? And then as soon as you walk out, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. So it's the same with connection and saying yes to events and parties, because you might not feel like going, but sometimes those things can actually connect you in ways that you don't even anticipate, and sometimes change people's lives, who they meet.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. I think, you know, about the work and wellness listeners, and many of them are, you know, people with really demanding careers. How do you think ambition, success and high performance influence our relationships? And do you have any advice for people who are trying to build a successful career, but also a fulfilling personal life? Because sometimes they can be in conflict with each other.
And this one's close to my heart, because I did work in the corporate world for 25 years. So I probably was a high achiever myself, and I worked and I saw a lot of high achievers in the workplace. And I think it's one of those traps where people can be so busy that people can think, oh, they don't have time for a relationship. Yeah. But I always like to use the expression, the President of the United States has got time to send a text to his loved ones. Everybody has time. No matter how busy you are, you might be one of the biggest leaders in the world. You've always got time for small moments of personal connection. And that might be, you know, you might have a day full of meetings, but you may have time to send a text during the day to say, I'm thinking of you. I'll call you when I can. So I think, you know, busy people sometimes fill the void of connection through their work. And so they really have to be self-aware and prioritize time to build connections, because ultimately that connection actually can make you a better leader, make you a better, you know, employer. If you carve out time from that, and that's a balance, because it requires that vulnerability of moving away from that comfort zone of the workplace and being a high achiever in the workplace, and being probably a little bit uncomfortable with, your personal life if you're not connected. And I think matchmaking has typically been targeted to senior executives, probably for that reason. They're time poor. They invest a lot of time in their workplace and less so in their relationships. So matchmaking has been something that, you know, high achievers and stuff have typically been targeted to. But with what I do is, it's like I recognize that no matter what your work is, or, you know, whether you're your own own business owner and you work for an employer, matchmaking is accessible for everyone. It's not just for people who are high achievers. There's a balance for everybody in your life.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about, everyone's got time to even send a text, and I often challenge when I run workshops for corporates around, people making time for their health and well-being is show me your screen time if you're telling me you don't have time. How long were you on email, social media, whatever else? And, is there a way that you can just send a quick check-in note or message? And, sometimes that's enough for people just to know that they're being thought of.
Yeah. No, you're spot on.
What has, spending years around relationships taught you about what makes relationships last? And what are the habits probably, if we get really specific, that you see in couples who end up going the long haul?
Yeah. I think it's choosing your person in 100 tiny, annoying, boring ways every day. And it's not just, love is not about big romantic gestures. It's really about, we're living with somebody else and we're not always the best version of ourselves every day. So my big one is forgiveness. We're often tired, we're stretched, we've got pressures, and we can react in ways that are not the best version of ourselves. So I see that the successful couples are not the ones that never clash, that not the ones that have perfect lives, and they know how to forgive, and we talked about it before, repair well. They know how to say, you know what, I'm not doing well, or I've got all these things that have happened to me in my life, so there's going to be moments where I react poorly. So I really think forgiveness and understanding your partner, having that self-awareness of both each other's triggers, because that's the thing that, do you forgive, move on, don't retreat into silence, don't keep score, being able to deal with the difficult situations and get over disagreements quickly is really the biggest one. Forgiveness. And I always say, just be kind to each other, be kind to yourself and be kind to your partner. And don't forget that, like, you may have been in a relationship a long time, but just the simple thing of just being kind. I say it to people who go on first dates. I say it to people who have been in a relationship a long time. That's what carries you through the years, being kind to each other, understanding that we're not going to be perfect every day, but continuing to choose each other and forgive and move forward, because the connection you have is really special. And once you've got that with someone, you should try and do everything you can to preserve it.
I agree. And I think, thinking about the long-term outcome rather than trying to be right in the moment is really important. I even reflect, my husband and I went to the gym this morning and I was just feeling agitated. I don't know why, for no reason. Anyway, of course, he's like the joker. So he was like being annoying on purpose. I'm like, you're really pissing me off. Stop it. But the ability to say, hey, I know you're trying to cheer me up, but I'm actually really agitated. What you're doing is making it worse. For him to be like, okay, yeah, I hear you. Come on, bring it in. Give me a hug. We'll get on with it. So I think sometimes also as the person on the other end, being able to name the emotion in sort of quite a calm manner can really help as well, rather than just letting it slide, and then exploding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's always just, I think if you can have a laugh and try and, you can be frustrated in a moment or angry and just go, you know what, just let it go. Let's just laugh this off, move forward. It's not, sometimes the things aren't really that big a deal in the moment, and, just keep choosing each other, because if you do find that connection, you want to do everything you can to, keep it.
And just have a bit of fun. I think in life in general, not just relationships, we can take it very seriously. And, there are some serious things in life, and I'm not trivializing it, but, we've got to have fun along the way. We only get to do it once, so we might as well enjoy it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If there was one thing that you wish everyone understood about relationships and their impact on well-being, what would that be?
Yeah, look, I think we live in a world where we outsource so much of our lives. We outsource to health professionals, finance professionals. We have people helping us in our home. But when it comes to the most important pillar of all, connection, we don't be vulnerable enough to seek enough help in that space, which is part of the conversation that I really want people to know, that it's okay to open up and ask for help in your personal life. Be brave enough to talk about it. Be brave enough to ask and put your hand up and say, I'd like to find connection,
Mm.
because that's, one of the most important things for people's like overall well-being is if it's important to them to find that connection, to have people around them who are supporting them on that journey. No
Mm.
different to the journey of finding a new job or the journey of finding a new house. We don't normalize, I think, the connection gap so much in society. People still feel that huge vulnerability around, being single. So I think, it's never too late to prioritize at whatever age you are, or if you've been single for a long time, to put your hand up and say, I'd like some help around it. I think the more people we can connect or give the opportunity to connect, we'd be a healthier and happier bunch of humans living in our community. If we can just try and help connect, a couple more people than are currently out there doing it on their own.
It's so true. And I mean, this is a bit of a rogue question, but like, I think sometimes, I need to say this in a way that is the way I intend it. And that is that sometimes because people desire for that belonging and the connection so much, sometimes they may choose someone even though they know they're not the right person for them because they want the companionship. What do you have to say to those people? Because I'm such a huge believer in that this is truly one of the most important decisions you'll make in your life. And I think, having the right partner can help catapult you to your absolute best self, or they can shrink you. And so what are your thoughts on that? And what would you say to someone who might be at that point where they're like, I kind of know this person isn't right, but I also don't want to be on my own?
Yeah. And look, I get it, because when I was single for a long time, I would meet somebody and they would tick all the boxes on paper. They'd be handsome and we'd go out and we'd have a good time. And there'd be some occasions where I'll be like, what's wrong with me? This person, this person's great, but my instincts were just not, it wasn't sitting well with my instincts. And so if it's not the right path, there's no point keeping someone in your life taking that energy and that space, because you're not keeping yourself open for the right person. Because if someone said to me at the 5-year mark, oh, your person is 2 years away, well, great, I'd be happy to wait 2 years, but you don't know that. But the longer you just stay open, your person that is the right fit for you will eventually come on. It's people who panic and say, oh, it's been 6 months, I haven't met someone. Well, that's okay. Maybe it'll be 7 years, but it's going to be worth the wait. Like, it'll be worth the wait to find the right person, because you can have a long life ahead of you and still have a relationship of 30 odd years by just keeping yourself open to the one that makes you feel good about yourself and uplifts you in many ways. And, it's never too late. Even some people in their 70s still can be seeking the right person, at that age. It's always comes down to who makes you feel good, because that's going to impact every aspect of your life, that health and well-being, every pillar, by making sure you wake up every day with someone that makes you feel good.
It's so important. I think, that's such a great answer to that question. It's almost like I always say in business, like every no is one step closer to a yes. You don't know how many no's there are going to be, but there's a yes at the end somewhere. And so you just have to keep trundling through, I guess,
Yeah.
And it's not always easy, but it's always that sort of thought of, there's that yes at the end.
Yeah. And I just say, leave no stone unturned with, trying to find connections outside your network. So if someone invites you to a barbecue, say yes. Join local sporting teams. Do things that put you outside of your comfort zone, or outside your social network, to meet different people. You want to always try to be meeting different people, crossing paths with different people, because, your person is out there. It's just leave no stone unturned to try and find them. And there's many offerings out there to help connect people, and, there's opportunities. You just have to continue to be positive and be open to what may be out there for you.
And, I think this is true for so many parts of life, Megan, as well. I think one of my friends was looking for a job, and I was like, stop applying with your resume and go out and meet people. Here are some places where you can. And people hire people they know, or people introduce people they know for different things. So I think it's exactly the same as just getting yourself out there and being face to face. There's really nothing like it. Is there a question that you wish I had have asked you today that I didn't?
Well, I guess it's, what do you think is holding back single people from leaning in more to matchmaking, and putting themselves out there in different ways as alternative to what's out there? Everyone knows the dating apps. What is holding people back, in your opinion?
Yeah, and feel free to answer that. What do you think is holding people back?
I think, look, I think it comes down to it's something different. Most people don't really understand what matchmaking it's about, but in its purest form, it's no different to, like you talk about, if you're looking for a job, people are connecting you. If you're looking for a house, you might employ a buyer's agent or a real estate agent to help you. So I think the biggest thing is just to recognize that it's no different from any other service out there. And just because you're single, it's no different to someone who's looking for a job or who's looking for somebody to do something at their house. It's just another pillar of life that we need to sort of normalize a little bit and say, you know what, it's okay to seek the help of a professional in every aspect of your life, and that includes your personal relationships.
It's so true, isn't it? I mean, we have no hesitation, going to personal trainers or seeing financial advisors or accountants and things like that. So I think that's totally fair. Where can everyone find you, Megan? What's the best way to get in touch if someone's listened and it sparks their interest?
Yeah, you can reach me at my website, www.lovewithme.com.au, and I'm also on Instagram, lovewithme_dating. They're probably the two best places where you can get more information and reach out to me.
Perfect. We'll pop those all in the show notes. Thank you so much for your insights on relationships today. I think, there are so many lessons that we can take across all areas of our life from a relationship perspective. So I really appreciate the chat.
No, thanks so much for your time, Ange. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Ange Davis. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.